Okay, this is piece 110. It's titled Still Life in Studio by Louis-Jacques Daguerre. 1837 is the year, and it's a daguerreotype. I wouldn't memorize his full name. I think just Daguerre is enough. This is our first piece of photography in our set. We have four photographs in our piece, in our set. The context for this is that Daguerre was a painter by trade before he was a photographer. And what he did was pretty unusual. He painted backdrops for not plays, but for little diorama shows. He's like the first silent movie maker in the world. He would make these backdrops. You can see this is a backdrop showing a cathedral, and here's the real altar, but then this backdrop goes behind it to make it give the illusion that there's a great distance back there with light shining. In this piece here, this is a drawing of his kind of theater, if you will, where 350 people could come and watch. And he had painted on, hanging from a mechanical structure, that a man over here turned with some mechanical kind of moving machinery, and that Daguerre would have painted like a 20 by 18 foot or even a 40 by 75 foot set of images of landscapes, and then he would light them in a certain way. This one's like a volcano, you can kind of see. And so he has a lot of experience with painting and with lighting that he brings to photography. So this is one of the ruins of Holy Road Chapel in Scotland that he painted, and you can see his command of light here. So he teamed up before 1833 with a man named Napis, who also was into the initial photography process. And this is really one of the first photographs that Napis made, where he let a piece of copper or silver plate sit out in the sun for 8 hours. Well, 8 hours is a really long time to be needing to make a piece of a photography. So it was Daguerre here who realized that they could use silver plated copper, and then he would set it out for a few minutes, treated it with iodine, and then by accident, actually, he had one of these plates in a cupboard where there was a broken thermometer, and so the mercury and vapors in the thermometer leached out onto the silver copper plate, and that sped up the process so incredibly that Daguerre was given credit for a new invention. More context is Daguerre was clearly aware of the Dutch masters like Rachel Ruysch and their still lifes. Remember her still life that has Vanitas telling us about, the limitedness of life and the certainty of death. So knowing about these still lifes, Daguerre was very clear about choosing his pieces to go in his still life. So the form of this is that it's black and white. It has putti in it, little angels, heavenly angels. It has a goddess over here, a Roman goddess, perhaps, Greek or Roman, a Venus, a goat head over here, some sort of flask that's got some great texture to it. And then up on the right, we've got a painting, looks like kind of a portrait. And so what is he saying with his choice of items for his still life? Just like Rachel Ruysch, he is likely saying that this could be his photography could be a classic art, that it could have items in it that people would recognize from the history of art, and like the putti, the Roman goddess, and that they would then appreciate photography for its possibilities in terms of being the high art. So the function of this still life in studio and of Daguerre's work is that he transformed art. he is going to be, this piece or photography is going to be the start of modern art. Because in essence, when you can take a photograph of something and it, is the image of an object, then what's the point of having painters paint images of objects? Instead, the idea is that some would say, well, gosh, he's just killed all painters' livelihoods. Others would say that he's freed up artists to draw or paint anything beyond just what is right there. So he's opened up art to what is going to be the modern art world. Others would say that photography has become art for all classes, that prior to photography, art was really limited to the wealthy who could afford to have their portraits taken. Oh, this, by the way, is Daguerre's daguerreotype of himself. And this is an unknown sitter and an unknown photographer, but it kind of illustrates perhaps that photography is for all classes. I don't know his wealth status, but another kind of aside here about photography, just right away after the daguerreotype was created, is that in America, it was used, in the United States, it was used to take portraits of people who had just died, like a day or two after their death or the day of their death. And so we have a little girl here who's died. She's surrounded by her dolls, and these portraits were taken so that the family could have a remembrance. And then this daguerreotype work is still alive and well. This is 2016, Jerry Spagnoli's work of a Savoy cabbage, and he used all of the chemical processes that Daguerre would have used to make this photograph. So it's not a digital piece. So just to show you that that work is still alive. So this is piece 110, Still Life in Studio by Daguerre in 1837, and it's daguerreotype.